Happy Pi Day! So here's my video on pi and how the magic of pi is all tied to time and how it's all tied to being able to see the illusion of this reality that we live in. I touched on a pi in a previous video, and Jamie had sparked something with her in her research, and she went and started to research Times Square in New York. And really fascinating, the whole ball and the square is tying into squaring the circle. We're going to take a look at some of the statues in New York and the relevance of those statues relating to time and freedom. And I also want to show you how Pythagoras had discovered mathematical equations from the fool's gold. Okay, and that is really important because of the shape of fool's gold. And that was how he discovered, math. So yeah, so this is pretty exciting. It's all starting to fall together, how everything is kind of relating to phi and pi. And I do believe pi relates to freedom. Okay, I was thinking at one point it wasn't, but now I'm really starting to see that pi is freedom. The infinity and beyond, is really tying into pi, obviously, and that it's to do with our own freedom to escape time. July 22nd is also Pi Day, because if you divide 7 into 22, it comes out to pi. But they have switched Pi Day, the official Pi Day, to be March 14th, because it's number 3, third month, on the 14th day, which is 3.14 for pi. Now, I do believe that this was the original Pi Day, and I guess the reason is because of the number 7, right? 7 is sacred because of the 7 planets, the 7 days of the week. 7, it's a very sacred number. 7 times 3 creates 21, which is the universe card. Forever 21, it's a very sacred number because that ends up being the Trinity, 21, right? So the gematria of number 7 comes out to the number 22. 22 is the 22 tarot cards. It would be the Fool's card because that's the 22nd card. It used to be known as the 22nd card, but now they've changed it to be the 0 card. The 21st being the universe. So there's a relationship between the Fool and freedom, right? Which is the little white dog, and you've got your little, hobo stick, and you're just willing to let go of the material world, and you're going to walk off the cliff. That's how freedom. How free you want to be and how willing you are going to go to get freedom. How far are you going to go to get freedom? Are you going to totally leave the matrix and let go of all materialism to the point of letting go of your body, the material body? How far are you going to go to believe in freedom, right? So there's that whole esoteric meaning to the 22nd card, which is the Fool's card, the 0 card. Now, this is when the divinity of the number, all is number, right, is so important. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 equals 28. Okay? Now, if you times these numbers together, multiply them, it comes to 5,040. These are both sacred numbers. 28 because of the 28 joints in your 2 hands. And then this is all tying into Genesis 1:1, which is in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And this is tying into squaring the circle, this whole thing. And I'll post a video that I watched with Marty Leeds, and really fascinating. He did a whole squaring the circle video, and you need to watch that. He explains it really well into the biblical texts. I'll explain the number 5,040, how that all ties into squaring the circle, which he went over in his video in more detail than I'm going to, but you can watch his video. But somebody sent me this because the original Archimedes, who created pi, he did it with the number 223, which I mentioned in one of my last videos. And when he put this into the gematria, the number pi 3.14, that gematria comes to 322. That just blew my mind. I was just like, wow, this is crazy, right? So, everything's sacred. The numbers are telling us the way. Okay, this is what's so fascinating about it all. This quote is directly related to squaring the circle. The square earth, its chariot, the round heaven, its canopy. So understanding the circle gets you to heaven, right? And you can see all these famous people, how they always have a picture of them with the compass, right, to draw out the circle. Now, what does a compass do for you in modern terms, if you have a compass? It shows you the direction, right? It teaches you how to find your way. Okay, so it's all, this is all, nothing is a coincidence in this realm. Okay, they've called the compass to help you find your way the compass because it relates back to the original compass, which was measuring the stars. You were measuring the stars with this tool, and you were also drawing the circle. And you can get the perfect triangle by drawing two circles, right? It's called the Vesica Pisces, which is basically the fish where the two circles meet, and then you can end up making the triangle, right? Because of how you draw the two circles. So two circles gives you the perfect triangle. And Jesus sits in a perfect Vesica Pisces. The Tree of Life, the Washington Monument, is also in a Vesica Pisces. So, this is sacred. They're using the sacred language. Now, how you want to interpret it is really up to you, but I'm just showing you how this is all part of our ability to see through this realm. They're also using it for the measurements of making the pyramids. And this is also showing how the pyramids are related to pi. And I'll get into that with this whole squaring of the circle, how that's all tying into how the pyramids were built. It's all in the sacred text. So for Dante, of course, the image is God, himself the traveler, grappling with the absolute conjunctions of opposites. God and man in the individual participation in the incarnation. Dante is, like a geometer, wholly dedicated to squaring the circle, and at the point of comprehension, which is not yet comprehension, I could feel my being turned, instinct and intellect balanced equally, as in a wheel whose motions nothing jars. By the love that moves the sun and the other stars, the most lyrical expression imaginable of the centering process in which the whole of the conscious man is surrendered to thyself, to the new center of personality which replaces the former ego. So it's like, whoa, that's what it's all about, seeing the balance of the circle and the square. So again, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. He created the circle and the square. The area of the circle comes to 63, which is 9, right? 6 and 3 is 9. The area of the square is 64, and 8 times 8 creates 64, so that's 8. So we have a unit of 9 and a unit of 8. They both add to the number 17, which is the letter Q. The squaring of the circle is a stage on the way to consciousness, a point of transition leading to a goal lying at yet unformulated beyond it. It is one of those paths to the center. That's Carl Jung. So they're telling us the secret, but they're not allowed to directly come out and tell us because you have to find this bit by bit so that you don't go insane realizing that this realm is an illusion. If somebody just comes out and tells you this realm's an illusion, first of all, you're not going to accept it, or it could be just too much information that, makes you not really want to function anymore. So it's done by this way so the seeker can find. Here's the mathematical equation for the perimeter of the square to equal to the circumference of the circle. Here is the ratio of phi, drawing a black line from the top of the red circle, halfway point of the square. That side angle of the pyramid equals phi. Okay, so 1.618. And pi ends up being the bottom of the pyramid, creating the distance from the middle of the square over to the square line. on the side, on the right-hand side here. This is pi, 3.14. And they used the math to create, to build the pyramids, where they were using pi and phi through all the measurements. Now what's fascinating is the units of that line coming from the circle down to the middle is 3,960. So you get the number, 369 in there, which Tesla said, you needed to know, you could find the key to the universe when you know the number 369. So we have the 396, and the point from the square up to the circle is a unit of 1,080, and you add those two together and you get the sacred number 5,040. And that is when you add the digits from 1 to 7, gives you 28, or if you multiply the digits from 1 to 7, you get 5,040. These are sacred numbers, all tying into our bodies and also to squaring the circle and making the pyramids. Now, if you take the number 28, which is our fingers, right, our two hands, the joints in our hands, and you divide it by 5,040, you get the number 180, and that was the other unit number, was 1,080, so you get the number 180. And 8 and 1 adds to 9, which is a sacred number as well. It rules the 9th house in astrology. It's the house of your higher mind and spirituality. So there you go. You can see the numbers again here, how they work out, and you see the number 1,080. I had mentioned this before in a previous video about the 88 keys on a piano, and then you play it with your two hands, and if you divide 88 by 28, this brings you to pi. Okay, but somebody else had sent me this, which is cool because it's tying into the 88 constellations, which is the circle in the heavens. So we've got the circle again, right? So the heavens of the circle is the zodiac. It's the circle. The keys cover 7 octaves. 88 divided by 7 equals 12.57. 12.57 divided by 4 seasons of the astrological year equals 3.142. So there you go. So the circle in the heavens is really the zodiac. It's the ecliptic, where the son of God, passes around the whole zodiac system. That's the circle in the heavens. And that is cool because it comes to pi, right? It's called a piano. So we get, it's just crazy. It's amazing how the language is all tied into the math. And here's another mathematical equation where they're trying to say how pi is related to phi, right? There's a relationship between pi and phi. So here they're saying pi is 3.14 and phi is 1.618. So phi minus 1.5, which is golden mean increment. So if you go on the golden ratio, the spiral, if you go back 1.5 of those increments, you get 0.118. So you're getting the number 118 there. Pi equals 26.616 times 0.118. Okay, and then that equals pi as well. Okay, so see how it's just crazy. It's like there's a relationship between phi and pi. And pi is never completely exact, right? Because it's always 3.14, but it can be 460 or it could be 159. So there's this, nobody can decide infinitively what pi is. We've been told what pi is, but when you do the math with the circling square, it can come out differently. So here they're saying measuring pi, squaring phi website. There are many reasons why you should be concerned about whether we use the correct value of pi or whether we continue using the wrong value of pi, which is what we've been told, for science, math, and commerce. After all, we have just proved that pi equals 4 divided into squaring phi. So you square phi and you divide it by 4 and it creates pi. So there's a relationship between the two, and I think that's why we're kind of off. Like this whole realm is a little bit not in balance because we're not using the right math. and maybe that's for a reason. And also the tuning of the music is not at 4-3-2 anymore like it was when they were creating classical music, which heals your body. So we're just all a little bit off, right? We're just off of off of the center point. The lawgiver must plant his city in the center of the country, choosing a spot which has all the other conveniences a city needs, which are easily learnt and specified. Next, he must divide the land into 12 portions, after reserving a sacred area for Hestia, Zeus, and Athena, calling it the Acropolis, and building a circular wall around it. From there he must divide the city and the whole country into 12 sections. The divisions must be made equitable by arranging for those containing good land to be smaller than those with inferior land. He must mark off 5,040 allotments. There's the sacred number. This is all from Plato. Divide each into 2 parts and give every man a portion consisting of 2 pieces, so that each portion contains a near piece and a far piece, the piece nearest the city being put together with the one furthest away, the second nearest with the second furthest, and so on with the rest. Like you kind of read that and you're like, what the heck is that? But once you understand the math of squaring the circle, and he's talking about the 12 being divided, he's talking about the zodiac. So there you go. It's like it's this sacred math hidden in ancient texts. These are the 60 divisors of 5,040. Now, the number that sticks out the most for me is the last one before 5,040, which is 2,520. And if you take that number, split it in half, you get 2025, the year that we have this blood moon on Pi Day, which is on Zavijava star, which is the speed of light star, with an Osiris-Sun conjunction. So, on Pi Day, Einstein's birthday. So I'm like, oh, wait, that's crazy that number's in there. And then we also have the 144 is in there. We also have the 42 judges. There's lots of different numbers in there that keep popping up in sacred texts. This is fascinating. The Pythagorean, with their love of symmetry and geometry, may have invented the regular dodecahedron after seeing pyrite crystals, perfecting what nature showed them. I was blown away by this, okay, because Dan Winters is always talking about the dodecahedron and how important that is, and that's your kind of like your Merkaba. And so I was like, whoa, what's this all about? So I had to check out the pyrite crystals. So when you look at these pyrite crystals, this is how they form in nature. And they have here the degrees of the angles. Okay, so it's 102.6 twice, and 106.6 twice, and then 121.6 once. Okay, so I'm just like, okay, I wonder what those all add up to. I couldn't believe it. When I added them all up, it comes to 5,400. So we have the number, 5040 again. Okay, it's not exact, but it's still pretty close, and it's, obviously it adds to number 9. 5 and 4 makes 9. So I was just kind of like blown away by that. So much so, I had to go buy a bracelet because I do really believe it's super sacred, because it's the pent, right? It's the, 5-pointed side, and the pentagram, ends up being Venus, which all ties into love. And pyrite is actually known as fool's gold. Okay, so if you wear it, it's supposed to bring you good fortune. Remember, you want to be the fool and you want to turn to gold. So even though they mention dodecahedron is 5-sided, but 12 of them, right? So a decagon is 5-sided, but 10. Okay, so when you look at the top angle of the 5-sided by 10, it ends up being the rose. You take a pent and you turn it at a certain angle and you draw another one. It ends up being the same shape as what you look at when you look at DNA from the strand looking down the strand. It's exactly the same shape. This is really interesting how if you take the proportions for the pyramid, you take a square and then you put the pentagon on top, and then you take 1/5 out, it creates the pyramid. Okay, so it's like, okay, so it's all geometry, right, in proportions. So it's pretty cool. So you have the pent right there visually seeing it. And this reminds me of the Pythagorean 47th problem, where he has the squares and creating the triangle. And, then if you look at this, how they folded it and created it into 3 dimensions, you can see it's like a rose in the center. So I'm like, oh, okay. So it's like all this math is all super sacred for our own ascension to become free. The Freemasons use this symbol. It's known as the 47th problem of the Pythagorean theorem. 47 is sacred in astrology as well, because the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th house rule the cardinal cross. So that would bring like 47 with 2 1s on either side if you took the 0 away for the 10th house. So it's like between the 2 pillars you have the number 47. It's basically cardinal cross. And just to make things confusing, cardinal cross is also known as the angular cross. Now, squaring the circle ends up coming to the 10 and the 8 in, digital numbers. And this is all part of squaring the circle with that number of 1080, like I showed you before. So they're using the same digits for that sacred geometry. So heaven is the circle, and the clock face has hands going around it, and hands are all tied to pi and phi, right? And this is a funny quote somebody had written, 6:30 is my favorite time, hands down. You get it? Because all the hands of the clock are facing downward. So it's just funny that these things that go around on a clock are called hands, and the hand is tied to phi and pi. Your physical hand makes phi, and then if you take the joints in your hand and divide it by the constellations in the sky, that creates pi. Or you could say divided by the keys on a piano. But it's because of the constellations in the sky. That's why there's 88 of them. They're tying us to the sky. But personally, I think the sky could be a little bit of a trap. I think, you want to stay grounded, and you want to be able to skip in and out of time, and you want the sun to activate you. But I don't think floating up in the sky is the right path, personally. That's my opinion on all of this. So here I found this old watch, okay, and it's the decagon, which is the same shape as the pyrite, right? And so I was like fascinated by it because they call this watch. They're using the pyrite, tying it to the watch. So I'm like, this is all tying into the sacred math. And this sacred math was more openly, being used back in 1923. In 1926 was when this watch was made. So it's pretty cool that they're using it, and it's all relating to whether or not you want to escape time. You want to be able to retain your memory through time, so that you know who you are. Even if you come into a different body, you still know the game. You still know the memory of what this realm is all about. I'm going to share this email from Jamie. So Times Square, or Saturn's cube, is located on the 7th Avenue and the 42nd Street of Broadway. I was shocked when I realized this. 7 is such a significant number, of course. 7 also encodes pi, which is what I explained. Okay, and then she's saying in Gematria cipher, yes, the 22. So we knew that. Okay, so then I'm going to link an article that covers Marty Lee's video on the 42 generations of Christ and how spiritual 42 is. 42 is also the 42 judges. But this was cool. She goes, 42 is 3. Okay, it's 3 times 14, which is pi. 3 and 14 is pi, right? It's Pi Day, March 14th, when we have this blood moon in 2025 that I keep going on about. Okay, so 42 divided by 3 is 14. So then she's saying, yeah, I get that, it's pi. It was also interesting that 42 written out equals 22 in septenary gematria, just like 7. And this is like the 22 cards of the tarot deck, right? And the 22 passes of the Kabbalah. So she's got all this linked too, but it's cool that she's linked it all to the Times Square. This is what really fascinates me. And then she's saying here, oh yeah, because it also ties to Matthew 7:14. So we got the sacred number 7. So Matthew 7:14, because the straight gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Okay, so it's so difficult to find this information and to see it. The other thing is the ball drop. That began the tradition in 1907, so another 7. Once I started seeing all the symbolism, I just felt like my vibration just lifted up like crazy. Yeah, and that's what happens when you start to see it all from this perspective, like this really open mind perspective. You do get this huge energy burst. Oh, I had to also mention the Cube art piece at New York City. It's called Alamo, which in serpentinary, again, comes to 7. But the thing is, on the 8th Street, so you've got the spiritual 7 and the infinite 8 with the black cube. She goes, it's crazy. There are so many bits of info coming through these past few days. Okay, and she dropped the video of the Marty's squaring the circle, I believe, or the 42 generations of Christ. You have to check out his channel. He's a Gnostic warrior there doing the math, which is really awesome. And it kind of helped me understand that I believe pi is time. Okay, it's because that's why it's called infinity, but it's relating to time. Okay? And this is really cool. Somebody did the math, like worked out the increments of pi around a circle, and they started doing artwork with it. And so I was like, whoa, so this is like really sacred geometry. And this is what it ends up looking like. This bottom picture here really fascinates me because if you notice right in the center of it, right in the center of pi, the art of the increments of pi is a pentagon, well, pentagram. Okay, so that's Venus's orbit. Okay, so where we have pi is doing what Venus does. Times Square happens on the 42nd Street, just south of the intersection of Broadway and 7th Avenue, just like Jamie said, located on the roof of 1 Times Square. So even that sounds like a mathematical equation, right? 1 Times Square. Now, what I didn't like is that they put a hex geometry on the ball. Okay, it's not pent, it's hex. Now the hex, like Dan Winter says, everything hex, that's why witch uses a hex, it's to make things hidden. Okay, it's to not let it grow outward in golden ratio, which is negentropy, which is what pent is. Pent is infinity, it keeps growing outward. So when you want to hide something or have it hidden, you hex it. So anything 6-sided is a hex. So there's that little ball on the top of the square, just like I showed you, with squaring the circle. It's exactly the same thing. The little ball that joins the circle and the square. And they don't have the circle here, but they have the ball and they have the square. So that little ball on top of, how they square the circle. And that would be the ball, and it's just outside the square. This is the 1 Times Square building, but it was a really old building before, and they renovated it and made it modern. This is all the renovations that it's gone through over time. In 1977, they had this like ticker square ad up on it, and I thought that was really interesting. It had to do with Lincoln, because I've always told you guys Lincoln has to do with the pond, the nectar of the gods. It means Llan in Welsh. And so Lincoln Center, out of doors. Okay, so out of doors is like they're using this as the arts performance, art performance, and but I just thought it was weird. Out of doors. It's like you don't have the doorway out, right? It's what a weird name they call it. Out of doors. It should be outdoors, or not out of doors. Out of doors means there's no more doors that are opening. Oh, and you have to check this out. This is hilarious. Somebody sent me this. It just came out on South Park 2 days ago. It's Pi. His name is PP or Pi Pi. So either way, it's PP or Pi Pi. So it ties into the nectar of the gods, and he has a streaming service. Okay, like because your P streams. It's hilarious. You have to watch this. It is a hoot. It's just a couple of minutes long, but go and watch this because I was like laughing my friggin' head off. It has Matt Damon there, and it's all about P. Okay. But it's just so funny that the guy's name is spelled, it's not P-E, it's Pi Pi. So it's tying into pi, and it's tying pi into P. And that all goes through the Kabbalah tree as well, okay? The whole tower card, the Hebrew letter is pi, okay? But pi, is also P. Okay, so P and Pi. It's all tying into it. It's the nectar of the gods. So anyhow, go check this little clip out. It was just too funny. I love it when Google helps me find things. So I was putting in one time for the building, and I think had Pie in there. And so the American Pie song, right? So American Pie is tied to all of this. Okay, so American Pie, they did a movie clip, and it's called One Time at Band Camp. So this girl, she's like super happy, and she's talking about music, and this guy like she's talking to him, and she's just like sounds like so exuberant, and she's just going, she keeps saying over and over again, one time when I was at band camp, and then he's talking again to her, and he's asking her to the prom, and then she goes, one time, another time, no, she doesn't go another time, she goes, one time when I was at band camp, this happened, and one time when I was at band camp, this happened. Like she keeps saying the word one time over and over again. So I'm like, oh my God, this is all linking to the One Time Square building in New York, and it's tied to Pi. That's the movie, it's called American Pie. You can actually go and visit there and pretend that you have an avatar and like have the whole experience virtually. And they're saying here, you can customize your avatar and walk through the 2020 Remembrance Hall. You enter a virtual Times Square plaza. Okay, it's just like, oh my God, like basically it's like a ritual to keep you locked in time. Like they're not allowing you to get out of time in Remembrance Hall. So I don't know, it's just weird. It's all the symbolisms there. How you perceive it is up to you. But I'm just saying, is it evil or is it good? There isn't any evil and good. It's just information, and you have to decide how you're going to interpret it and how you're going to use it to help you on your path. It doesn't mean, they're bad or they're good, really. They're just showing you information. Basically, not everybody's ready to be enlightened, right? So, when saying they're bad because they're showing you the symbolism of the unenlightened path, doesn't mean that it's really bad, because I do think we all agreed to this game at some point in our consciousness. This is a game to see if you can find your way back to God, and not everybody's ready to do that, right? So they want to experience the hell on earth a little bit more, I guess, or they're just not willing to open their minds. So closed mind puts you in hell, basically. So this statue, Father Duffy's statue, I was wondering if it was at Times Square, but it's not actually. It's a little further along on the path. And I'm going to show you the map of New York, how this is all relating to the path of the Mobius strip. The Father Duffy statue is on the 47th Street in New York, and by the 7th Street. So we have the sacred numbers again. And this ties back into the 47th mathematical problem that the Masons worship. Now, if you really check out his statue and understand the history of this statue, it all ties into Masonry. And they tell you straight out here on a Wikipedia page, the distinguished achievements from the Masonic order was for Father Francis P. Duffy. Now, if you look really close, what his hands have there, if you zoom in really, really close, you can see it's a cross. He's holding like the Masonic cross in between his two hands. And it has like the Celtic cross behind him, right? His back is up against the big Celtic cross. Now, if you take a straight line right down Broadway Street, you go through Times Square, and Broadway Street leads you to the Herald Square on the other end. Okay, so it's like Broadway Street is connecting these two sacred sites, the Herald Square and this Father Duffy Square. And his is all about time, right? He's got the cardinal cross, the Masonic cross in his hand, and you know this is to do with Times Square, and then you got this Herald Square at the other end of it. So I'll go into the symbolism, what's going on there, and then there's another park below that that has symbolism as well. So you've got to remember the Masonic order are the keepers of time. Okay, they're the timekeepers. So Herald Square proper is the north end of Square between the West 34th and 35th Street. The old New York Herald building was located on the square. So it's all to do with journalism and media. Okay, this is representing media. This New York Herald building was there before. The square contains a huge mechanical clock whose mechanical structures were constructed in 1895 by the sculptor Antony Jean Charles. The monument, known as the James Gordon Bennett Monument, consists of the goddess of wisdom, Minerva, and her owls in front of a bell, flanked by two ball ringers mounted on a Milford pink granite pedestal. The monument's bell was designed to charm on the hour. The two 7-foot-tall bronze laborers, so we got number 7 again, nicknamed Stuff and Cuff, give the appearance of ringing the bell with their mallets, while it actually is rung by mallets located behind the bell. The figures on the clocks were originally part of the 1894 New York Herald building that was located on the square. Prior to the demolition of the building in 1921, the figures were removed and reinstalled in the square in 1940. So these monuments were on top of this New York Herald journalist building. God, I'd done a video on New York a long time ago with the Statue of Liberty, and I know across the river, there's a Minerva statue looking at the Statue of Liberty. I think in Jersey or something. I don't know. I can't remember where it was located, but it's definitely looking at the Statue of Liberty. Now, Minerva is the goddess of wisdom, right? Like I said. And she's got the owls represent wisdom. And this is a really pretty picture, but you see it's to do with time and the clock, right? So we got the time again. And there's Guff and Stuff hitting the bell. And right on top of the bell is the owl. And Minerva's looking at the owl. And here's an up close of her, and you can see she has snakes all around her, crawling up her body. Okay, the snake is wisdom. Okay, it's not always evil. Okay, there's a good snake and a bad snake. And I don't know what's on her head there. I can't tell. It looks like is that a lamb on her head on the right-hand side? I don't know. Maybe you guys, if you do live in New York, go check it out. And there you can see the owl on top of the bell there. And the birds like way on top of the statue is also owls, but they have wings. So anyhow, it's all to do with being wise, having the wisdom to see through things. And if you don't, I guess whom the bell tolls for you. You know, it's that whole thing with Ernest Hemingway, whom the bell tolls. It's like the bell tolling means that you didn't make it through. Okay, it's like I don't think it's a good thing when the bell tolls for you. It means you're stuck in time. Or the positive side of it was it's like the Liberty Bell. And it's, you know, you've got the Liberty Bell singing your song for you. So it's always polarity. There's always a, you know, kind of a good, you can look at it from a good point of view or a bad point of view. It's really your choice, but it's just information. I wonder if that's why clocks are called cuckoo clocks, because we're all cuckoo stuck in time. It makes sense to me. Okay, so anyhow, so now we have this Herald Square, but below that you have the Greeley Square Park. And if you notice, it looks like a figure eight with the Broadway Street. Okay, Broadway Street's crossing right through there, and it's making the cross just above 33rd Street. So you get the number 33, which all ties into Freemasonry. The importance of the number 33. The lunar and solar calendars align. They're off by 2 days every 33 years. So the two pillars like come together every 33 years. The other thing I just learned was that, you know, Saturn returns to its spot in the sky every 29, 30 years. That's when you do your Saturn returns for understanding your life path through astrology. If you want a reading, that's what I do. I map out your whole life path from Saturn. But the interesting thing about Saturn, he conjuncts Pluto every 33 to every 36 years. So there's Pluto is your soul, and Saturn is time. So if you want to get your soul out of time, this is where the number 33 comes into it as well again. In 2011, Horace Greeley turns 200. So the statue turned 200 in 2011. So we get 11 and 2 makes the number 22. And then it's saying here that he was a journalist, also a publisher. So he was also a publisher. So we had, you know, the publisher in the Herald Park Square, and then this is also to do with publishing. So it's, you know, controlling our thoughts, right, is to do with publishing. So here turns 200 on Thursday, February the 3rd. So February 3rd, number 23, DNA was when he turned 200. This is in Bryant Park. Okay, this is, and then in history, they had the Crystal Palace there. Okay, they built the Crystal Palace because he was traveling to London and Greeley attended and was blown away by the great exhibition in 1851 housed in the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park in London. Amazed by the breadth and the content of the work, when he returned to the States, he met with a friend, entertainer, and promoter, P.T. Barnum of New York officials to form a committee to bring a similar exhibition to the city. So the Crystal Palace, also known as the Exhibition of Industry of All Nations, was in this park. Okay, so this is a very significant park and has more history, back to George Washington as well. So the Exhibition of Industry of All Nations was this big Crystal Palace, and there's a poem affiliated with it here by Walt Whitman, American poet, wrote the Song of the Exhibition. A palace, loftier, fairer, ampler than any yet, earth's modern wonder, history's 7 outstriping, high-rising tier of tier, with glass and iron facades, gladdening the sun and sky, enhued in the cheerfulness hues, bronze, lilac, robin eggs, marine and crimson. Over those golden roof shall float, beneath the banner, freedom. So this is representing freedom, this Crystal Palace. It's like what they say in the Bible, right? You're going to go to this Crystal Palace. Here's some sketchings of it. Wow, it was huge. It's like crazy. And anyhow, it ended up burning down. So, you know, I guess like, you know, is that symbolism that the Crystal Palace burnt? You know, is it like a symbol of ascension? I don't know. This seems kind of weird, but it's no longer there. So they're saying here that the Bryant Park back in the 1776 was George Washington troops crossed the area while retreating from battle on Long Island. The road upon which Washington's troops retreated traversed the park site diagonally. The city acquired the land in 1822. Beginning in 1823, Bryant Park was designated as a potter's field, a graveyard for the poor, and remained so until 1840, when thousands of bodies were moved towards Island. So that's kind of creepy. So a whole bunch of bodies were buried there, but they kind of, he retreated, so it wasn't good for the Patriots and for freedom, and then they buried a bunch of dead people there. But then afterwards, it kind of got changed around and turned into the Crystal Palace. So I don't know. It's just it's hard to understand. How the symbolism is being woven back and forth between different factions, and what does the symbolism all mean? But to me, it's just mathematically, you want to be able to understand that time is not linear, and that your memory is the most important thing, and how you use your brain and how you use your mind for positivity, and will bring you to where you want to go. You can create your own path through your thoughts, and you can escape time. I do believe that that's what's happening right now, is there's going to be an opening up of this ability to transcend from the sun, and creating this ability to jump timelines. I really do believe that's what's going on. Well, that's what they're showing us, so they want us to believe it, and maybe by us believing it, we create it. The fascinating thing that NASA is showing us about the sun, because the sun shoots off gamma rays, and we've been getting quite a lot lately. It's been affecting people. A lot of people, it's affecting them in their stomachs. But anyhow, the whole topic of gamma rays, I'm always looking into gamma rays and the symbolism of gamma rays. And I found this from NASA, where they're showing that the gamma ray ties to pi and phi. So there you go. So it's like everything is connected. The Ladding Observatory was a wooden tower in New York City, built in 1853 for the exhibition of industry of all nations. Okay, now this was the inspiration for the Eiffel Tower. Okay, and then they're saying down here, it opened on July 1st, and it was this wonderful panoramic view, which was said to reach for 40 to 60 miles, 60 to 100 kilometers, providing an incomparable view unavailable in London, Paris, or from atop the Great Pyramid of Giza. So even from atop the Pyramid of Giza, this view was better. Okay, as the tower rises in the midst of the human hive, whose bees are the best in the world's apiary, which is to do with bees and collecting honey. So it's like they're saying the human hive. So it rises above being the hive mind. So you're rising above the hive mind. The hive mind is the cyborg. It's like in Star Trek. You don't want to be assimilated. You want to be your own person on your own path. I love this quote. When people ask me what American Pie means, I tell them it means I don't ever have to work again if I don't want to. That's it. You can escape this realm through pi. Well, it's a balance of pi and phi. The balance of squaring the circle, heaven and earth. There we were, all in one place, a generation lost in space. That's what it feels like. And we got to find our way home. And home is inward, right through the third eye, right towards the sun. That's where we got to go. And that's what we're asking, the sun to transform us. So happy Pi Day, guys. Bliss to you all.